everybody. Nomalanga, Mhlauli-Moses with Shaquita Graham, and together we are Married Women's Business. You can find us at marriedwomensbiz.com. Today we're talking about swirling that is being done by Black women, namely Serena Williams, Zoe Saldana, and I can't pronounce her name correctly. Condola Rashad, who is Felicia Rashad's daughter. And we're talking about this because last week we talked about interracial marriage and relationships where it was Black men with white women. And just so we're not accused of being unbalanced, here we are, we're talking about this. So Shaquita, you've gathered a lot of information about all these relationships and the current conversations surrounding these relationships. What say you?
Okay, so first of all, we both kind of preferred not to talk about this in a way, but you know, people were just constantly at us. Oh, why aren't you talking about Serena? Why aren't you talking about Serena? But you need to talk about Serena. So we're talking about Serena. And the bottom line for me is there's no difference between Black men or Black women when it comes to interracial dating. The whole entire Black community, I do not feel that it is positive for us to be involved in interracial dating. And also, when it comes to this topic, I really think that it's kind of like sometimes we can give it a little overkill, because I think like 94% of Black women, or maybe in the high 80s of Black men, are married to, you know, a Black person of the opposite sex. So while most Black people marry other Black people, it is important to talk about this because this agenda is being pushed by the people who are propped up in mainstream society in order to just kind of push this agenda that, you know, being involved with white people is somehow better. And it's just not true. So let me just share this information about what's happening with these women we discuss. Serena Williams has become engaged to Ohanian. I don't know his last name is Ohanian, Alexis Ohanian, and he is a co-founder of Reddit, the website, and so she's engaged to him. And then we have people who were saying that she said that white men were better than Black men, and we found that that was a lie. Basically, we found that wasn't a true story. However, we do see this quote. Let's see where this
page down a little, like page, it's right below the image.
Yeah, I see the quote, but I'm not sure what the source is. So reportedly, she did say that when she dates someone, she never sees color. However, she says, I date who I have chemistry with, but I must say Alexis treated me better than any Black man I have dated. Okay, and so then we have, then we have Condola Rashad. She was just recently engaged to this man, and I don't know who he is. Let's see. He may not be a celebrity. Sebastian Valentin. All right. So she got engaged to him. And then about a month ago, there was a lot of talk about this picture where Zoe Saldana in the middle here and her two sisters, they were all with white men. And people had an issue with that. So this is what we're talking about. Noma, do you want to go ahead and kind of chime in real quick before I just say
Sure. Before you go after them. You know, when we were still kind of looking through the media for stories about this particular topic, you read off something that Zoe Saldana was saying with regards to race and interracial marriage and so on. And honestly, I think I said it then and I'll say it now. She's just sounded stupid and confused. So I'm going to put her in a whole nother category of her own. The other young lady, Felicia Rashad's daughter, Condola Rashad, I don't know much about her other than I've seen her in one role. And I haven't honestly seen much of her interviews and what she has said. So it's hard to judge too much what is going on there. And then Serena Williams is the one I think I shared with you, where I find that it's hard to really for me, it's hard, and it's not for you necessarily. It's hard for me to totally just really go in on her because I've kind of heard a lot of what she said surrounding who she is, what she feels about the Black community, and so on. So I'm puzzled by her decision, but I stand by what I've always said about interracial relationships. I don't lose any sleep over these relationships. This is where my problem is, where my problem has always been. If you as a Black person, whether you're a Black man or a Black woman, put it in your mind that there's something wrong with Black people, even though you're Black, and you deliberately skip over every Black person that you see and deliberately go after interracial relationships, then you have a self-loathing problem because you're saying something's wrong with your kind and you want something else, and you deliberately go after something else. That's the major problem that I have.
You know, this whole thing is like having a toothache. It's like very annoying for me because I am very passionate about, you know, interracial dating not being good for the Black community, because I feel that if you are involved in interracial relationships, you really don't understand our history as Black people or world history and the conclusions that you must draw if you understand what has happened and what is happening. And, you know, everybody who's involved in that. And so I personally could not look into the face of any white person for more than 5 minutes seriously without asking them, what are we going to do about white supremacy? You with your white, pink skin or whatever it is, what are you going to do about white supremacy? I mean, now we need to get this resolved. If you don't feel that way, I just question whether you empathize with your own community. Black children are being killed in the street. And, you know, more than that has been happening for centuries. So, you know, I just really am baffled when people do this. And I'm just going to bring up some really good, because we can only talk about this for so long, but I'm going to bring up some references of people who have studied this and talked about this. I'm going to talk about this from the book, The Interracial Con Game. It's over, I think this book is over 300 pages, but what she says is that we will also present historical evidence and personal testimonies that support our controversial and politically incorrect position by proving the following. Number one, sexual intercourse between whites and Blacks always creates more oppression, degradation, self-hatred, and mass confusion among Blacks. The victims of white supremacy oppression must maintain a psychological and sexual distance between themselves and their victimizers. Otherwise, any efforts to overcome their oppression will be rendered useless. It is impossible to overcome your oppression when you engage in sexual intercourse with your oppressors. In other words, you cannot sleep with white supremacy at night and wake up in the morning and fight it. And I think this is the problem, because many of these people who are involved in this don't intend to fight against white supremacy at all. And I'm going to go in specifically on Serena, because, okay, people want to say love is love and she doesn't see color. Okay, well, what about if the person you're engaged to is a co-owner of a site that is basically a hate site? This article was from Gawker. It was in 2015. It says how Reddit became a worse black hole of violent racism than Stormfront. And it goes on to talk about how Reddit is a site where they show videos of Black men being killed in different ways. I want to find the clip here. Let's see. These gruesome videos show Black men being hit in the head repeatedly with a hammer, burned alive, and killed in various other ways, in a variety of other ways. The subreddit banner features a cartoon of a Black man hanging, complete with a Klansman in the background. I mean, this article is long. I'm not going to go into this. There's a lot of information about what goes on at Reddit.
In the context of what, Shaquita, in the context of, look at this. This is so much fun. Look at how funny this is.
It's celebration of Black death. Okay, how could you, I couldn't even have a good conversation with a person who's a co-owner of a site like this, let alone marry them as a Black woman. So that's just to start with. Go ahead, Noah.
So, you know, I personally don't go around shouting about don't marry Black people shouldn't marry white people. My focus is what Black people should do rather than what they shouldn't do. And then, so you have to ask yourself these questions. I want to go back to point number 3 that you shared from the interracial con game. Mm-hmm. And what it does is it talked about how one moment you're sleeping with an oppressor and then the next day fighting the oppression. And I think that's the issue that comes up a lot, is that a lot of people then have this weird position where even if they take issue with racism, they can't speak about it because speaking against racism is to some degree speaking against, or they feel it's like speaking against your spouse. So for me personally, you can't pay me any amount of money to go against my spouse. There's nothing you could say to get me to go against my spouse. So I do have to ask the question of, if you're really invested in the building of the Black community and the tearing down of the oppression of Black people in this country and globally, how do you balance that in your mind, where then you have to have that double-mindedness of loving a person who is of the race of the people who generally oppressed you, and then also fighting for ending the oppression? That creates a double-mindedness that I think you don't have to create for yourself.
And then, you know, Serena, okay, she didn't make the statement supposedly about white men being better than Black men, but then she goes in this article, and again, reportedly, she said that she can say one thing, that Alexis treated her better than any Black man. What was the point of that statement? You know, my thing is that Black men, they've been repeatedly demonized and said to be abusive and be rapists. And this is all a part of a very consistent and long racist white supremacist plot that a lot of people who call themselves swirlers are feeding into. Because it's not only, yeah, I want to date a white man, but I'm going to date a white man and I'm going to hate on all Black men. And I'm going to say that I choose to be with white men because Black men are something negative. Meanwhile, in the real world, white men have, I mean, it's on record, they've raped and tortured every type of woman on the planet. I mean, just whole civilizations of people. And I'm not talking about just the women, but the children and the men. You know, and this is something that still goes on. And I want to reference another book again, because this is widely reported and the information is out there. This book is called Pieces of a Puzzle: The One Thing Black Females Will Not Talk About, by Renethia Tate. And she said, so this book features a collection of interviews from 15 Black women who talk about their sexual experiences with white men. Likewise, there are 13 white men speaking on the issue of sex and race. Following the interviews, the author discovers a disturbing pattern of savage behavior among white men that may have been running rampant for centuries in secret. So the premise of this book, and she says that a lot of Black women won't talk about this, but as she's done her research, she's found that white men love to engage in these depraved and sickening sexual acts with Black women. I mean, you can see that with even just as far back as Thomas Jefferson. I mean, somebody even mentioned in the movie Birth of a Nation, when Nat Turner was going to kill one of the white slave owners, he was in bed with a little Black girl. You know, these kinds of things, I can't. I'm done. Okay.
So when you look at this conversation, Shaquita, one of the things that I mentioned before we went live and started recording was you'll find that a lot of people are not educated the way that you are, and have not been exposed to the information that you are. So you'll hear a lot of this rhetoric about, oh, you can't help who you love. You know, people love who they love, and you can't help who you fall in love with, and so on and so on. But I want to, again, bring it back to the fact that for me, raising kids, for instance, one of the things that I teach my kids is a sense of pride in themselves, and not just a pride about, oh, you're a Moses and you're my kid and so on. It's a sense of African pride and understanding that as an African and as a Black person, we have enough information that shows us that there has been a lot of social engineering to degrade us, to kill us, to do so many things to our image, to destroy it. And our work from here on is to raise and build children who are going to go back to who we are and understand who we are and our greatness. To me, all this stuff feels like a distraction from that. It seems like turning the street when we're all going in one direction. When we talk about building our wealth and keeping it in our families and in our communities, when we talk about building legacies, kingdoms, when we talk about kings and queens and all the stuff that you see out there, I used to think it was so ridiculous when I saw Black people calling each other kings and queens. But as I've gotten older, I've come to understand that what they're really trying to do is restore something that they were robbed of. And I think that when people start to educate themselves and they start to get focused and disciplined about where we're going and what we're trying to do, and you and I are always clarifying that, hey, it's not everybody. But for those of us who are interested in building ourselves back up, and not just for this generation, but for the next and the next and the next, we're going to have to come to, the sad conclusion that not everybody's going to stay on message. Not everybody's going to stay on code. Not everybody's coming.
Yeah. And again, most Black people are married to a Black person of the opposite sex, which is a good thing. And we need to not be distracted by people who are spinning this whole other narrative. And it is it's about more than your personal love life. And Serena, or I don't know if it's Serena, but a lot of these swirlers are acting like it's impossible to find a good Black man, and it's just not true. There's a lot of Black marriages out there, and again, I just threw out the statistic that most Black people are married to Black people of the opposite race. And Black men, yes, they have their trials and their tribulations. Some of them are doing well though. And, just the myths. We need to stop buying into the myths. We need to stop propagating them, perpetuating them, and we most definitely should be confronting them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I just want to interrupt you just to say people don't have to look that far. Just between you and I, we have over 25 years of Black marriage and building a Black family collectively. There's 25 years right here. You don't have to look very far. And it's not a myth that, it's not a myth that regular Black women, whether celebrity or not celebrity, can find regular Black men to build their lives with.
And I would say above regular,
right.
Above average. As far
by regular, I mean not celebrities.
Oh.
But my point is, even when we talk about celebrities, and this is my last point, let's understand that that's what they are, the celebrities, okay? Serena, Zoe, and Condola, they live in a whole nother world. And they don't have the same reality that we have. So we have to understand that what we're doing may not necessarily gel with what they're doing unless they say so. They just happen to be in the spotlight. Unless they absolutely say, look, I'm one of those people. And the thing is, there are celebrities who say it and then they follow up with their word, with their deeds. But they haven't said that that's what they're doing. So we can't have the expectation that they're going to do what we think they should do.
What do you mean that what is what they're doing?
They're not interested in building the Black community. They're not interested in building Black families. They didn't say that's what they were doing.
Right. Okay.
And that's what I'm trying to say is, and so they live in a separate world. And unless they say that they're building what we're building, we can't have the expectation that that's what they're doing.
But the problem is with all of these different worlds, and all of these different worlds, racism, white supremacy still exists. And it says you're Black, and the oppression that we're going to heap on Black people it can trickle down to you at any time we decide for it to do that. So while you're living in your world, just remember that you're still Black, and the oppression that you see Black people going through can hit your doorstep at any time, and we can be putting up hashtag Serena.
Right.
So,
I agree with you. I'm just mindful of the fact that one of the things that you and I are both very invested in is building Black wealth.
mm-hmm.
You know, and the importance of building Black wealth seems to be lost on some people when they ascend to a level where money is not an issue for them. You know?
Yeah, you're
money
right.
is not an issue for you. It's not an issue for me necessarily. But what I mean is I'm just seeing consistently where people are looking at celebrities and not realizing that these people just live in a different reality. For me, I actually see people who struggle. And I understand that part of their struggle is because of the subjugation of Black people in this country. It's directly tied to white supremacy. They built systems where they keep us out of jobs. They keep us out of opportunities, resources, and so on. So it, to me, is imperative. I constantly say it's a matter of urgency that we build Black families and we build Black wealth, health, everything Black. It's important because we're the ones suffering. But I'm saying that sometimes with these celebrities, they're off in some other world where they're removed from this, or they choose.
No, I just have a hard time buying that, because my thing is, I don't live in South Carolina or North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of those or both of those places, the Dylan Roof thing happened, where a white boy, 21 years old or 20 or whatever he was, went and killed 9 Black people just because they were Black. I think 6 of them women, older women, defenseless people. And then the situation where the cop shot Walter Scott in the back after he was running away, and people can't find it in their brains that this person, to declare this person as guilty. To me, that speaks a volume. Like, you have to be kind of mentally not all there to think that can't happen to you. Like, if I see that happen to a Black man, I start thinking about Black men around me and my family. And not only that, these people travel the world. You don't see how Black people are treated around the world. You can't even go to your own dang on continent and see Black people being treated properly. Where 98% of the resources are owned by white people. Like, these kind of things trouble me deeply. And people who don't tune into that, I question their humanity, period. So it annoys me, and I need to stop talking about this topic. Thank you so much, Noma. Is there
Yes, the passionate Shaquita.
Because I love people, and I love my people. I love humanity, and these people are committing crimes against humanity. And there's people out there that's sitting up there marrying people who are co-signing terror, like the co-owner of Reddit.
I hear what you're saying. So I want our audience to know where they can find more of you and I, Shaquita, more of these engaging conversations about building Black families, building the Black community, building Black wealth, and these kinds of current topics. You can find us at marriedwomensbiz.com. That's marriedwomensbiz.com, where Shaquita and I have a show called Married Women's Biz TV. I want to thank you, Shaquita. Always a great conversation with you, and thank our audience. Thank you, guys, and take care.
Thank you, Noma. Thank you, guys.